Jeff Young from around the Foghorn. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Well, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. We're still in the midst of that damn lockout, but other than that, I can't really complain. Obviously, we're gonna talk some baseball, but it's funny as we were going live. I saw you pouring your tea again. I thought it was kind of funny to see that big tea, whatever, as you were
Yeah, I got
pouring
my
that.
tea kettle
So,
right here.
yep, big tea fan over there. So, yeah, so you were on the radio yesterday, 95.7 The Game. So, you've been on the radio quite a bit lately. So, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with little old me over here. But how was it? You sounded good, sounded awesome on the radio. So, and usually you're talking to Dieter, but I know it's kind of back and forth with whoever reaches out. So, this
Yeah,
was with the game. But how was that?
it was good. It's always good to chat baseball. Always good to chat Giants baseball in particular. It's kind of tough right now because I think I think radio stations want to talk about baseball, and there's only so much that we can talk about right now with the lockout, with the Giants roster and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
it's not easy, but it's fun to go on and talk baseball. I've realized while doing this that I tend to lose my train of thought when I talk, and I feel like that happened at one point yesterday because I was like talking, and then at some point I was like, well, that's what that's all about, I guess. And I don't know if it made any sense whatsoever, but it happens sometimes, I guess.
I'll have to go back and listen because I was listening and it sounded good. Now maybe I don't know, maybe I wasn't quite as honed in on something, so maybe if I go back and look for it, I'll be like, "What the hell are you doing there?" But honestly, it sounds natural every time, and it's like I kind of know you obviously from talking and doing all these podcasts, but when I listen to people on the radio, like guests all the time, they always sound like they're so perfect or like such a professional, and you blend in with that. Like, I'm not saying that you don't.
Oh,
I'm not saying that you're like sticking out as a sore thumb. You actually sound really natural and stuff too. So, but I was just gonna say, I'm sure like all the other people that sound polished, are professional, and do it all the time, probably mess up too and think the same thing on occasion. So, you sounded good. You sounded really good. So, and you've done it quite a few times now. So, uh, I know I asked you last time if you're ever nervous doing it. So, I'm sure you always have the butterflies, but it's got to be easier every time you do it. Also.
yeah. I mean, I've been doing a little more preparation. I have my Microsoft Word notes that I just can kind of pull up, and I have a bunch of random Giants scouting reports and all that stuff. So I feel like I'm pretty prepared, more so than I guess when I started doing this, which wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean it is a little nerve wracking. It does take a little bit of mental energy to do it because it's not in my nature to go out and talk on the radio.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean it helps with practice. It helps to be prepared and anticipate what questions might come up.
Yeah, so and like I said, you've been doing this quite a bit lately, and it's been almost, if not weekly, almost every week. So, you become a or I was gonna say a fan favorite. You become a favorite, obviously, of this certain radio stations. But like yesterday was a different one that you've talked to in the past, I think. But how did they reach out? Was it just like, hey, we want to talk to Jeff because we've been hearing you on the radio, we know who you are now, or I mean, how do they end up coming into the fold?
Usually when it's 95.7, it's the producer who reaches out to me, usually on Twitter because that's the easiest way to reach out to me, I guess. And
Yeah.
they see if I'm available at a certain time slot, and most instances I am, and it's that's how they do it. And then with KBR, it's usually the host reaches out to me directly. So it varies from station to station, but it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, so really cool that you're doing that. And I know you, so it sounds so I feel like I know some expert now. So I'm going to grill you with all the baseball. Yeah. So obviously last time we talked, which wasn't that long ago, I think less than a month ago already, or only a month ago, really. We didn't really have much baseball as far as anything new to talk about. So it's we'll figure it out as we go, but we do have some topics to hit on. So, obviously, current MLB. So I put current MLB labor gripes. Now, I'm putting that with prefacing it by saying like I'm on the player's side. I'm not just saying, oh, a lockout. Like it's not ideal either way, but I think obviously most people would say like, yeah, what the owners are doing or aren't doing is what's kind of receiving a lot of the beef or so right now. So obviously the players have their own issues and why they want to, come together to on this agreement going forward, whenever that might be. But so obviously the topic lately has been now that it's about to be March and we know that spring training is going to be delayed or won't start until at least March 5, right? It seems likely that the season's not starting on time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how they get to that point where the season does start on time. I mean, we're at this point in a normal season, pitchers and catchers should have reported by now, at least a couple of days ago. And spring training games usually start within 10 days after that. So I don't know how it starts on April 1st or whenever the official opening day was going to be, given that, free agency still needs to take place. Teams still need to hammer out the salaries for the arbitration eligible players. Spring training still needs to take place. It's 6 weeks for a reason for the pitchers to build up arm strength, position players to get their reps in the field, and for hitters to a lesser extent to get their timing down. So I mean, with all that being said, I don't know how it starts on April 1st. I don't think you can really condense spring training. It's not really good for the overall product, because the players, we saw in 2020 when the shortened with the shortened season, how they had I think it was like a 3 week camp or something
Yeah,
right
yeah.
before the season started, and it looked like a lot of the teams, at least from the Giants standpoint, it looked like that they were not prepared when the season began. There were some guys who were playing out of position and had a bunch of defensive miscues, and many of them attributed that to the kind of short camp or the short mini camp that they had before the season began. Um, so I mean, if we're looking at that and factoring in free agency, which is probably going to be exciting and chaotic when a new CBA is ratified, just because so many players still need to sign up guys like Chris Bryant, Nicholas Castellanos, Carlos Rodon. All these guys need to find new homes, and it's going to be different because those guys probably won't be able to wait it out like they do in a normal off season. There are some baseball agents out there like Scott Boras who recommends that his players kind of wait out the markets to get the best deal. So that's not going to take place. I wouldn't expect. So it's going to be pretty chaotic. So with all that being said, I mean, I think we're at the point where if baseball starts mid-April, I think that's a win.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I agree with that. So, if you had to put a number on it, are you thinking like 140 games, or I mean, it's hard to say right now because we don't know when the lockout's going to end. But I think a safe number in terms of like you don't want 60 games again,
Yeah.
but maybe it's 130, 140 at least, or you'd hope, I would say. And that might even be a number that most fans would rather have anyway. But I would be okay with like 140. I would hope for 162, but I don't think that's going to happen. So because you don't want to start late and then move the season back just to accommodate 162 and then the playoffs end in mid-November or something crazy like that. So, yeah, you think like 130, 140 maybe right now in terms of you would hope at least.
Yeah, I mean that's optimistic and that's ideal at this point, and it's one of those numbers that could change 2 weeks from now if they don't make any progress in talks.
Yeah.
Um, but right now, if the season starts in mid-April, we're probably looking at 140 games. I know that they can get creative with double headers, but I don't know how excited the players are going to be to have double headers, just because that wears down the roster pretty quickly. Um, so, I mean, as it currently stands, if they come to an agreement at the end of the month, we might be looking at 140 games. 2 weeks from now, we might be looking at 130, maybe less than 130 games, and then who knows after that.
Yeah. I was doing some very, very basic, quick searching yesterday, and I didn't really find an answer. But I was kind of curious, and you probably know, and maybe I should know. But like, how are the minor leagues not locked out? Because that's going to happen like normal. And I thought I would have just assumed anyway. and I'm glad it's not locked out, but obviously, but I kind of just assumed that like it would be, and it's not. And so when I was looking it up yesterday, I wasn't finding any reason as to why, other than the minor leagues won't be. So do you know why? That's just how it, I guess, is set up to work.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer. I guess I would assume that the minor leagues are on a different CBA schedule in baseball,
Yeah, yeah,
Major League
assume.
Baseball, as a way to avoid baseball shutting down in its entirety. Because I know, for instance, like minor league baseball has different PED testing requirements, or at least it did a couple of years ago. So I wonder if it's because that they're on a different CBA schedule.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's probably what it is actually. That makes sense. So, for what it's worth, it's really good that there will be minor league baseball happening. And honestly, this could benefit college baseball, softball, minor league baseball. I mean, you want major league baseball, of course, everybody does, but those individual leagues and the college sports, like they're going to be able to reap the benefits, I would say, of any added exposure. People that just want to watch baseball. So, you want the season to start as soon as possible. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you're a minor league team, you're not exactly you're probably thinking about how can we promote or really bring in extra exposure.
Yeah, I mean, minor league baseball is one of those things that if you go to games, it's like it's very I'm trying to think of what the right word is, but it's like very it's like baseball at its core. Like when you go to a major league baseball
Yeah,
game, it's like it's an event. The ballpark is kind of like a theme park. But when you go to a minor league baseball game, it's like very just it has a very like organic baseball feel to it.
that's
You're
true.
watching, you're watching baseball players, hopefully future major league baseball players, um, there's not a whole lot that's going on outside of the game. There's something that's so cool about it. So if people haven't gone to a minor league baseball game recently, I'd recommend doing so just because it's such a fun experience. And I hope, I mean, I guess if we're trying to look at the lockout from a glass half full perspective, then minor league baseball should see maybe an increase in attendance.
Yeah.
Um, uh, if the Major League Baseball season is delayed, so I mean it's yeah I think it could be in a weird way good for minor league baseball. It could be good for college baseball, especially now because if you go on social media right now, there are a lot of people promoting college baseball
Oh,
because the season just began, and a lot of people are following what potential first round picks or second and third and on what they might be doing or how they perform so far. So I mean, if there is a uh, a reason to be or if there is a reason to be optimistic, it's because the other minor league or the other baseball leagues are getting maybe a little added exposure from this.
yeah, and you said it like it's kind of baseball at its core, but also it's kind of one of those things where maybe whether you're a diehard baseball fan or just a casual baseball fan, you might not really be a fan of, not to say you're not a fan of the team in your city, but let's say you're a Giants fan and you live in another city and you like that minor league you like that minor league team. You may not really care where they are in the standings. You just want to go have a good time. It's a cool environment. They have all kinds of crazy promotions typically happening in minor league baseball anyway. So
Yeah.
it's like you said, it's baseball at its core, but it's also they always already increase the kind of the promotion element of it anyway. So yeah, I'm sure that they're gonna have some interesting ideas, as they typically do. I know how I know how the minor league baseball game works in terms of the promotional side of things. So I'm sure they're gonna
Yep.
have, they're gonna figure it out for sure and really capitalize how they can. But as far as some of the labor dispute issues, not so much like the uh contract arbitration, the financial side of it, but like um I don't know. Things like we've talked about the DH in the National League. We've talked about how the game might be impacted on the field in terms of how things are played. So I don't know if we've talked about this, but like expanded playoffs. Are you a fan of that?
No. It's because I don't know. I don't really necessarily trust the owners to put out the best product out there, and I just kind of not all owners necessarily, but there are teams like for instance like the Pittsburgh Pirates where they have like a $41 million budget or payroll last year. I mean, it's like you're not even they had good players and they're not even trying. Um, but I just don't know if there are 12 or 14 good enough teams in baseball
Yeah.
um, to to really make the playoffs. I mean, you look at other sports where like teams like in NBA for instance, 8 teams in each conference make the playoffs, but like those like 7, 6, 7, 8 seed teams, I mean, they don't really do much in the playoffs unless you're the Warriors and it's 2007 and they're playing the number one seed Dallas
Mavericks.
Mavericks. Um, but yeah, I mean those teams don't do really much of anything. So it's just it adds to the revenue for the owners, and I get that they want expanded playoffs because it's
Yeah.
good for their bottom line. But it's not good to see a team that's 500 or hovering around 500 make it to the playoffs, and it's just I don't know I don't like it. I like 10 teams. That's a good number. It really makes the regular season feel special if everyone kind of gets in, which would be closer to the case if 14 teams. I mean, half of baseball would be a playoff team almost if 14 teams made it. I think it just takes away from the regular season.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not a fan of it either, and I would rather it be what it is now. Like, I don't know how you felt about it, and I don't remember if I've changed my mindset on it, but like, I don't mind the single elimination, I guess, for the wild card because I get people that say like 162 games comes down to one game, but this is also
Yeah,
putting more emphasis on winning the division as opposed to just being like, oh, we're going to be a wild card team and get hot and win it all later. Because we saw a lot of wild card teams having kind of that success. So, would you rather it be what it is, but a series in the wild card, or do you care about the one game? Do you mind that?
I'm kind of indifferent. It becomes hard and it becomes kind of a logistical thing. Maybe not a huge logistical item, but given the fact that if it is like a 3 game series rather than a single game elimination that pushes back the division series and the championship series and World Series, and I know in baseball, a lot of it is based on timing, and we've seen it in the past where teams that have long layoffs between series tend to look a little kind of rusty out the gates. And I'm thinking of, for instance, like the 2012 World Series, where I think the Detroit Tigers swept whoever they were playing against
Yeah.
in the
Yep.
championship series, and the Giants won to 7 games against the Cardinals. And right out the gates, the Giants just attacked and never looked back, and they swept the Tigers. I mean, they looked a little rusty, and so I don't know. I think the single elimination game is fine if they expand it out to 3 games or 5 games. I think it provides or gives the teams that are watching at home, it gives them kind of a disadvantage just because
Yeah. Yeah.
there's an even longer layoff between
Yeah.
the wild card series and the division series. So I don't know. I think the single elimination game is fine.
Yeah, I agree with that. You make a good point because like you have a team that has home field advantage, and sure, extra rest is great, but then you like you said, the layoff kind of can screw with teams too. And sometimes teams that are playing well, hot at the end, are the ones that keep playing, keep going, don't have that rest. So it's kind of random, but
Yeah,
yeah, I don't mind that. And with the NFL, they expanded the playoffs, which I don't think they needed to do either. And like you said, it's the revenue, so they're not going to go backwards. But with that said, um, I think the first round of the NFL playoffs was kind of meh. Like, I don't think a lot of people were super thrilled by it, but then the second round really heated up with, of course, certain teams, games that were playing out, Chiefs, Bills, all that. So, yeah, I feel like it kind of waters it down a little bit if you expand and add more teams. And so they're probably going to do it. I'm sure they will because when teams talk about it, it usually or the sport talks about it, usually happens. And you mentioned the NBA. Do you like, I mean, not to get off on an NBA tangent, but you brought it up. So I'm curious. Do you like the current format now where it's kind of that end of season tournament for the last, what is it, the last 3, 4 seeds or whatever it is? Where it's like, or well, last 2 seeds, I guess, where they play like that little, you know what I'm talking about.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
to
It's
just
like a
determine
playing game.
yeah, exactly. Do you like that?
I mean, I guess it's fine. I didn't really. The Warriors are my team, and they lost both of their playing
Yeah,
games last year,
yeah,
so that part sucked.
mm,
But I don't really have a perspective one way or the other as to whether it's better or not. I guess it's exciting. And again, it's about generating revenue,
yeah,
trying to drum up a little more excitement.
yeah,
It's just it's hard to really get excited about like who's going to be the 7 and 8 seed. It's like
yeah,
with March Madness coming up next month, isn't there like a kind of like a playing game
yeah.
for
First
the
four.
final couple of spots? And it's like, well, these teams are just getting lined up to get their asses handed to them by the
You
number
know,
one seed.
yeah, it's
So
funny because I felt the same way about it when they first introduced the first four, but it's been kind of fun because we saw, I think it was VCU went from first four to the final four, and it's always like two 16s, and then it's like what is it, 11 versus 11. So the 11 seed could always make a run. The 16s
yeah,
usually not, but yeah, we have actually seen teams. In fact, who was it last year? I think in the first four made a run. I can't remember who the teams were now, but uh
must have been exciting.
well, it was though. It was. I don't remember the exact teams, but there always seems to be somebody from the first four that makes an unlikely run. So it's kind of interesting too. But the thing is, well, they'll do it, and then we're gonna learn to like it, and then we won't even have a problem with it. So that's just
Yeah,
kind of how it goes too. It's kind of like with baseball. Remember when they you're I'd say a traditionalist. So like you probably don't care. You probably don't even think about it now. But remember the four pitch intentional walk?
yeah.
Like, were you one of those that would say, no, don't make it automatic, just have him throw? Because then there's like the 1 in a million chance the ball gets away or something crazy happens. But you don't care about that now, probably, right?
I don't really care. I mean,
Yeah.
that wasn't one that bugged me of all the rule changes, and I think it came around the same time that the double headers going from 9 innings to 7 innings and
Yeah.
the automatic runner in extra innings. So I think that and also the three batter minimum, which I guess it was annoying at first, but we've learned to adjust to it. I mean,
Yeah.
if you go back a few years, baseball didn't even have replay like 10 years ago, except for like foul and fair balls. Now you can replay everything. And that's
Yeah.
been good for baseball, right? Because that the umpires who are usually pretty good, you know, they're getting the calls. They're getting kind of the big misses for the most part corrected.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that like if they implement it, I'm sure we'll be against it at first, and then
Yeah.
we'll just be
We'll
like
adapt.
whatever. But the four pitch one, I don't know. I didn't really think of it. I just it bugs me. I guess the terminology bugs me with some of these things. Like it's the automatic or the yeah, it's the automatic walk and the automatic runner, and I'm like, are we playing t-ball here? What is going on?
Yeah. The automatic.
With
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, you got it.
No, I was just gonna say the automatic runner is horrible. I hate that so much. The
Yeah,
automatic walk, I mean, yeah, it's more or less the same. It's just with that, it's like intentional walk, automatic walk. It's the same difference. But you put an
yeah,
intentional runner on base, ghost runner, intentional runner, phantom runner, or well, not phantom, I guess. But you know what I'm saying? It's like that. The actual idea to put another guy or a guy on second base in extra innings that
yeah,
shouldn't even be a thing. That shouldn't even happen. So I'm with you there.
yeah. I mean, it reminds me of that time I played adult slow pitch softball. When we go in extra innings, we'd have a guy on second base. Of course, he'd have to fill up his beer first at second base, which is where the keg is stationed.
Yeah,
Um, but
that works
yeah, I
out.
just yeah, yeah, everyone wanted to be the automatic runner there, but it's yeah, I don't know. The four pitch walk is fine. I just don't like the terminology that's used for it. I guess,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is just me being picky.
Well, there you go. If you're not unhappy about the actual change, or at least you're not liking the way they what they call it, so that's something.
Yeah,
But yeah, I they probably are going to do something like that. I don't think they're doing it this year, or at least when they have a season. I don't think it's going to be in the 12th inning at least, or 10th inning, or when is it? It was 10th inning, wasn't it? I'm trying
was
to remember. Baseball's been so long ago now; it's hard to even remember all the details. But um, they're probably going to do something like that because they don't want 18 inning games. But if they got to do it in like the 15th inning or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know it would be like 12 or 13 at the early, or not the earliest, but it wouldn't be as far as the 15th, and they would want it to be wrapped up sooner. But anyway, yeah. So and then like with baseball, so it sounds like I don't know, probably collectively, but more so, I guess, from like the owner side of things. They're like, "Oh, we feel the pressure now," and it's like, well, where was that like a month ago?
Yeah, I mean, when baseball did implement the lockout in December 1st, there weren't any negotiations going on for about 6 weeks up until the middle of January, and the negotiations have been kind of sparse, and then now they are feeling the pressure. I mean, deadlines tend to spur activity, so I think that's kind of where we're at. That the players want to get something done because if they don't, then their salaries become prorated at that point. So if a player has signed a $10 million contract in the offseason and they only play 75% of the games, he's only getting 75% of that salary. And then, of course, I mean, for the owners, it's lost revenue, but it's not, it's a short term loss for the owners because I mean, and I mentioned this yesterday. If you look at how team valuations are increasing substantially year over year, I mean, it's if they miss some revenue from a couple of games, they're going to be fine. I mean, when they eventually sell that team, they're going to make that money back. How many times over again? Just because that's being a obviously being a sports owner is very lucrative. I mean, we saw the Mets sell for $2.4 billion last off season. So for the owners, it's a loss, but it's not. It's really just a short term loss for them. In the long term, they're still going to be fine. The players, you know, they're still making a substantial salary, but they can't
Yeah.
make up that money.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So we'll see if the urgency is really going to be there to maybe hammer something out soon. I mean, one of these days, hopefully sooner than later, it's going to probably be random at like 2 o'clock in the middle of the week that like, oh, breaking news, baseball has
Yeah.
agreed to something. So it could happen at any time, but it just doesn't seem likely right now in terms of how soon. But so kind of moving to, oh, actually, you know what? One last thing I wanted to bring up before we get to like actual on the field stuff. So uh I know you have a reaction to this like everybody else. So, what did you make of baseball hiring this what was it, a mediator or whatever, arbitrator or whatever, to basically be like, yeah, they we don't baseball shouldn't have to pay these minor leaguers who are going to be in spring training. And then their reasoning was like they're not employees and it actually goes against like the Fair Trade Act or whatever. I don't think that's the right act. But anyway, they're trying to make a point as to why they shouldn't, like, trying to defend why they shouldn't pay minor leaguers. Like, what was that? Like, can you believe that?
Yeah, I mean it's frustrating to see because people in baseball and not the front office but like just people who run baseball. I mean, there's a lot of talk about growing the game, and I don't know how you can grow the game by some of the measures that we've seen recently, like the uh, minor leagues being cut down from 180 players to 150 players, which was proposed recently. And then just the overall pay for minor leaguers is it's so rough to make it in baseball as is, and it's even harder when you factor in some of these players. They have to work a second and third job, and how much time is committed to baseball, especially now compared to like 30 years ago when you like. And I'm thinking of a veteran catcher who was on social media recently, and I think he's a minor league baseball coach. He said
Todd Pratt?
something to the yeah, it was Todd Pratt. He was like, "Oh, I made $750 in the 1980s, and I was perfectly fine."
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it's such a different era where there's so many advances in nutrition, health and fitness, communication. These players are on the clock so much compared to a few decades ago that it's crazy how minor league salaries have grown, but not necessarily to outpace inflation. It's frustrating to see that minor leaguers. I don't believe they get paid during spring training. I think that was the point you were making. And the arbitrator was saying, well, they're getting housing, or they're getting $2,000 worth of services. So it's actually in their favor that
Yeah,
they don't get paid. And it was just kind of crazy to see that. And it's frustrating because you think about these guys, who play for pro ball for 6, 7, 8 years. And then they eventually give it up. And I don't think it's that they give it up because they don't love playing the game anymore. They don't want to compete anymore. I think it's realistic that if you're a 30-year-old, journeyman minor leaguer, like it just doesn't make financial sense to continue playing baseball
yeah,
if you're making I don't know the exact number, but it's probably close to like $12,000 annually being a
yeah,
minor leaguer, even if you're in AAA. I mean, like
yeah.
it doesn't make financial sense if you're trying to eventually buy a house, save for retirement, start a family, all those things. It just like you can't grow the game if you're going to continue to pay minor leaguers this way.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, minor league baseball players would like have second jobs, whether it was like teaching or, second jobs just in the off season to get by. And it's like, think about that. It's kind of crazy, but that's just the life of the minor leaguer. And it's just, and I don't know. I don't even know where I saw this. It was I don't know who it was, like a big figure. I can't remember who. They're defending minor leaguers and like, basically like they're the reason why we even are able to do what we do. I mean, without them, you
Yeah,
don't I don't, it's just kind of it's crazy how they're viewed or how baseball itself views upon their own players or people in terms of trying to make it. And then they're like, yeah, no, we're doing them a favor by giving them a facility to practice in or train in.
yeah, I think it was. I don't know if this is who you're referring to, but Dayton Moore, who's the
Yeah,
general
that's
manager
it.
for the Kansas City Royals,
Yeah,
and this was a couple years ago, and he deserves a lot of credit for, um, you know, doing the things that he did because I don't believe the Royals actually, during COVID, there were a lot of teams who were just letting go of minor league players. Their careers ended basically that day. Um, and I don't think the Royals enacted the same measures. I think they said we're going to pay the minor leaguers throughout the year. We're not going to release them. And then he also followed that up with that really good quote where he said that the minor leaguers are really the backbone of baseball, and that's
yeah,
they're the future coaches, they're the future analysts and all this stuff. And it was a really good quote to see, and it's nice to see from the front office because most are probably or most seem to be quiet or siding with the owners, whereas I think Dayton Moore was obviously siding with the minor league players, and it was kind of a refreshing take.
yeah, yeah. It was Dayton Moore too. Yeah. So moving kind of to on the field stuff. So I wanted to touch on this. So the Giants are going to honor your guy Buster Posey this season, his career and legacy, of course. So that's obviously a big date on the calendar for fans, and I know you're looking forward to that. So uh yeah, Buster Posey, I think he had retired the last time we chatted, but I don't know if we really got onto his career too much. But um he's going in the Hall of Fame, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, you look at his accomplishments in baseball. He didn't have the longevity that I think a lot of voters want to see. I mean, they want to see a guy play 15 plus years, but that just wasn't what Buster Posey wanted. But you look at what he achieved on the field. I mean, he was the three-time World Series champ, MVP in 2012, Rookie of the Year. I think he was like a seven-time All-Star, Gold Glove winner. There are a few players in baseball history who kind of did what he did on the field while also
Mhm.
being a very productive player. And it's kind of crazy that we're talking about Buster Posey's career in the rearview mirror now because of how strong of a season he had in 2021. And I put this out a couple of days ago. He had one of the best like final seasons that a catcher has really ever had. There are a few players who performed better as at catcher in their final season than Posey did, and I compared it to the 18 or 19 or 20 catchers who were in the Hall of Fame. There was only one player who was ahead of them in terms of offensive production. So, I mean, it's crazy that we're talking about Posey's career in the rearview mirror because it looked like he had plenty of good seasons ahead of him. But yeah, I mean, what does he mean to Giants fans? it's really hard to put into words because of how many good memories he had in a Giants uniform. All the success that the Giants had were really a direct result of Posey being a part of the organization. So it's one of those things that, and it's going to be unfair to compare anyone to Buster Posey. So it's kind of tough shoes to fill for a guy like Joey Bart, who's
Yeah.
who's been the heir apparent to Posey for a couple of years now, because he was the number 2 overall pick in 2018. So it's tough shoes to fill, but it's also impossible to compare anyone to Posey really in the Giants organization.
Yeah. So are you gonna make the trip to go to any games this season? Maybe go to that game?
It'd be nice to. One thing I wanted to mention about the the minor league games that we touched on earlier is that it's going to minor league games are much more
Easier.
affordable than baseball
Yeah.
games,
Yeah.
than Major League Baseball games. I remember I went to a game like 3 years ago. I met up with a buddy, um, and I like I did the math, and I probably spent like $200-300 for just a single person because I was like I wanted to have pizza and drink beer and all that stuff, and
Yeah.
I can't imagine what like families of four have, how expensive it is to go to a game if a single person has to drop a couple $100 for tickets, food and all that stuff, transportation. I mean, so it'd be nice to go to a game. I don't know if I'll make it out, but we'll see.
So you're telling me you got pizza? I didn't know you were a pizza and beer fan. I'm surprised.
Oh yeah, definitely a beer fan, and also a pizza fan. I love pizza.
Did the Giants win that game? Do you remember anything about that game? Just,
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
obviously you touched on the main part, like you said,
yeah.
the financial side of it's not easy.
Yeah, it's not. Did they win that game? I've been to so many games I can't remember if they
That's fair.
won. I feel like they did because it was this weird. Okay, I think it was this like weird stretch in 2017 or 2018, or actually it was 2019 maybe,
Okay.
where they were playing really well in July. So I think it was a July game. Pablo Sandoval might have hit a sac fly or something for that team. So I think they ended up winning. The details are a little hazy, and
Yeah.
the beer was hazy too. So that's probably why. A
Little hazy IPA.
little hazy IPA.
Always good. I love IPA. All right, so let's see. I actually already touched on this. I put this in the middle. We can get rid of that one. So, I was kind of looking at around the Foghorn, some of the latest stuff that you guys have been dropping, and so, Seiya Suzuki. I think I said it right. We touched on this earlier in our little pregame meeting, pre-show meeting, and I think I said the name right. I already forgot, but Seiya Suzuki. The Hiroshima Toyo Carp posted him right, so he's out there as a free agent, correct?
Well, he's not a free agent yet. He's being posted, meaning
Could
that
be. Yeah.
teams the negotiating window is 10 days in, and they're basically that
Right.
window is typically 30 days, but it's on hold because the CBA expired. So when baseball does start up again, they will have 20 days for that negotiating window to still be open. And
Gotcha.
the posting window means that their teams are going to bid for the opportunity to work out a contract with them.
That's
Um,
right.
I am I'm a little fuzzy on the details because it's changed over the years, but I think there's an upper bound to which teams can offer the posting team. I think there's a $20 million cap, which obviously is a very substantial amount. But
Yeah.
in the past, there wasn't a cap. I think, for example, like Daisuke Matsuzaka, the Red Sox paid like a $50 million posting fee just to negotiate with him. So I think there's a
Yeah.
cap on it now, and I don't know how they determine who gets the bid with Suzuki, but it does seem like the Giants. I mean, there's been a lot of rumors connecting the Giants to Suzuki. So on one hand, I want to be optimistic and say that where there's smoke, there's fire. But on the other hand, the Giants, their front office works pretty discreetly with how they operate. So there's not a whole lot of rumors that come out of the front office. So I don't know if I can put substance or weight into the rumors right now, but he does fit what they need because they do need a right-handed hitting outfielder. They've been in the market for one.
Yeah.
Um, they could, if they don't sign him, they could go out and still look at the free agent market or look at trades for a right-handed hitting outfielder. There's still plenty of guys out there.
Before we close, the Giants bullpen, I think you were writing about that, trying to project that out. So how do you like the bullpen? What do you see going on in that area in 2022?
Yeah, I mean, it performed unusually well in 2021. I think they had the best ERA in baseball at 2.99, and they really put it together by handing out a lot of minor league contracts with spring training invites to for guys like Dominic Leone, Jay Jackson. I mean, these guys played pretty key roles in the bullpen, but they also had some nice seasons from guys like Tony Watson, Tyler Rogers, Jake McGee, Jose Alvarez. They didn't spend a lot, and I think this is. I don't think the Giants are going to be the type of team that spends a lot on the bullpen.
Mhm.
Um, so I mean, looking at how they might perform in 2022 is difficult just because the bullpen is the most volatile area on any roster. With that being said, I think they have a lot of potential. Camilo Duvall was one of their more exciting arms to come up through the Giants farm system in recent years. He's I think he's the definitely going to be the closer when the season begins. He can touch triple digits with his fastball. He's got a good slider. And then another guy that came up, Kervin Castro, also a rookie. He had a really nice rookie kind of introduction. I think he's at 13.1 scoreless innings to begin his career for Giants fans. I think the uh, the record in Giants franchise history is 16.1 innings, so he's not far off what the rookie or what the record is for a pitcher to start his career. So I mean, I still expect the bullpen to be a strength going forward. I think they're going to be challenged with trying to find guys who want to come and sign with them on a minor league deal, just because there aren't a ton of opportunities this year like there was last year. They had a lot of um, bullpen openings last year. This year, I just don't really see that being the case. So I think that's probably going to be the biggest challenge is making sure that there's no drop off and ensuring that there's enough depth in case that injuries or regression happen. And, especially with the bullpen, it's going to happen. So I think preparing for that is going to be tough for them.
Well, hopefully we have some baseball again, like we said last time. Hopefully we have some baseball on the field to talk about soon. But we'll probably talk again before. Well, regardless, we'll talk again soon, and hopefully we'll have some news on the labor front. Before we go, did you? I know you watched the Super Bowl last week. What'd you think of it?
It was good. I mean, I guess it was kind of boring, right?
I thought it was all right. It was pretty interesting because both teams were in it. It was close, so I was kind of pulling
Yeah.
for the Bengals. Though, what about you?
Yeah, I mean,
And
being a Niners fan and seeing the Rams go and win, that I mean, I guess that was tough to see. I don't have they're not a rival,
yeah,
um, in the same sense that like the Cardinals are a rival to the Cubs or the Dodgers are a rival to the Giants. So I mean, it's easy to not like them, but I don't know. I guess it's fine that they won. It was good that the game was close. It just seemed kind of uneventful.
mhm.
So I glad you brought that up. It was fun to sit down and drink beer and watch football on a Sunday. Going to work the next day wasn't so fun.
Yeah. See, I take off the Monday after the Super Bowl now, so
Yeah,
it's good. But did you have like a party or just like kind of watch it by yourself?
I just watched it with a couple of friends. Nothing too exciting.
So, do you have your next radio appearance yet?
Not yet. Usually I get notified maybe a day or two in advance, if that, or the day of. So, um, yeah, nothing planned currently, which is fine.
That's probably good because that way you don't have too much time to think about it. You're just like, oh, I'm going on the radio. Okay, let me get my notes and let's
Yeah.
just do it. Let's just let it rip. So,
Yeah.
can you imagine? Can you imagine? I don't want to put this out there because you've been doing it really well, but can you imagine if somebody was going on and then just like froze and it was just dead silent?
That's my fucking fear. Uh, I'm like terrified of like biting my tongue because I've been known to
Yeah.
bite my tongue, and then like just like going quiet and then silently crying while not being able to talk because my tongue is bleeding and all that stuff. So yeah, that's kind of my fear is that I freeze and mess up the guy's name and all that stuff. So
Well, the
yeah,
good news
thanks.
is like no, the good news is like you're not even close. Like you sound super ready to roll and you're always good, so you won't have to worry about it.
Oh, we'll see.
Yeah, can you imagine if you went on the radio and just I shouldn't say it, but like if someone went on the radio and like called the person by the wrong name or something like that,
Yeah,
that would be
that'd be
crazy.
awful. That'd be awful, Bill. That'd be awful.
Well, thanks again for chatting with me. I think we're gonna try to do this somewhat regularly, maybe every at least a couple times a month, which would be cool. So,
Yep.
um, I can't wait to do it though once the season starts and we get to chat about baseball and like when the Cubs play the Giants, we can like shit talk or whatever. That'd be fun.
Yeah, yeah. It'd be like when the Niners played the Packers
Uh,
and in the playoffs, and we know how that went.
yeah, I was talking a lot of junk, and I think it worked out in my favor pretty well.
Yeah, it always does. The Niners and the Packers when they're in the playoffs, it usually works in the Packers' favor, right?
Exactly. So,
Especially recent history.
yeah. Do you think that Brady or Rodgers or someone else will be the Niners quarterback next year?
No idea. I don't know if you see the rumors like I do.
Yeah, yeah,
Every day there's something new. Like I don't even believe Tom Brady retired anymore because somebody put it out there that his relationship with Bruce Arians had soured,
yeah.
and that he's using retirement as a way to get away. So I don't know. I
I,
don't know
I
who's going to be the QB.
I do think that he is going to be retired, but yeah, I saw that too, and it's crazy to me because like he's the reason why Bruce Arians has a ring on his finger. Not to say they wouldn't have won without him, but I doubt they would have won without him. So it's
Yeah,
kind of funny. I mean, from what I read, it sounds like Arians was out when he had the knee surgery or injury or whatever he had, and Brady and Leftwich had the offensive game plan set up, and then Arians comes in end of the week and is like, "No, I'm going to change all this now." And so
yeah,
it was funny too because I was watching on the NFL Network this morning. They were showing the replay of like the Steelers Seahawks Super Bowl from years ago, and Bruce
yep.
Arians was the Pittsburgh offensive coordinator, which I'd forgotten about. So,
Ah,
uh, anyway, so I'm going to definitely keep your info handy because we'll talk some baseball again soon, and that's all I've got. Unless you want to add anything else.
no, I think I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, definitely. Good chatting with you as always.
Yep, good to chat with you too. Let's do it again soon.
Yeah.